Tonight, a deadly shooting at a Texas immigration facility.
We're a country and a city that needs prayer.
Why officials say it was a targeted incident as leaders demand an end to political violence. Plus, the shutout before the shutdown. President Trump cancels a meeting with Democratic leaders ahead of a looming government shutdown. A look at the politics behind the negotiations. And fighting heart disease.
About a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events and a 39% reduction in death from heart-related causes.
The medical breakthrough offering hope to patients. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. An ongoing investigation tonight in Texas after a deadly shooting at an ICE facility. Good evening in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. Just before 7 this morning, a sniper fired from a building adjacent to the facility, killing 2 detainees and leaving a third person in critical condition. The shooter is also dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. While details are still emerging tonight, authorities have confirmed no ICE officers or law enforcement were injured in the shooting. But according to the FBI, this was a targeted attack. Shell casings found near the shooter had the words anti-ICE written on them. Senator Ted Cruz says this is just the latest example of politically motivated violence.
This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, the divisive rhetoric tragically has real consequences. Violence has no place. It is wrong. And we should come together. If we want to have a debate about immigration policies, we can do so in the halls of Congress without demonizing each other.
And although shell casings had anti-ICE written on them, authorities say an exact motive or target is not yet clear. Okay, all right. Joining us now is Donnell Harvin, former D.C. Chief of Homeland Security and Intelligence and a faculty member at Georgetown University. Donnell, always good to see you. Welcome. This is the second rooftop style shooting we've seen in just 2 weeks. Charlie Kirk, and now this one here in Dallas. From your perspective, what does this say about the threat landscape we're facing right now?
And not only is it the second incident with a rooftop long gun type of assailant, but it's also one of many attacks against ICE agents over the last year. But what it says is that the threat environment is really, really high in terms of these maligned actors, people who are politically motivated, looking to not take out their grievances using the public discourse that our Constitution allows, but also going a step further, mobilizing to violence. Yeah.
So investigators say they found the casings with anti-ICE written on them. Donnell, how significant is that, and how concerned are you about the role of radicalization, whether it's online or elsewhere, in fueling these kinds of attacks?
Yeah, we've seen the etching of sayings or memes into these type of attacks in terms of the bullets, the shell casings, with other cases, certainly with the horrific killing of Charlie Kirk, as well as the case involving Luigi Mangione and other cases. And it looks like, you see this online, these folks emulate each other. I don't like to use the word copycat because they're not actually doing the same thing, but they're taking some of the same tactics, techniques, and procedures that we've seen. It's intended to send a specific message. It's intended to really stoke fear in the population that they're targeting.
Yeah. Attacks like these, they do raise questions about what signs may have been missed. Donnell, how difficult is it for intelligence agencies to detect and disrupt these kinds of lone wolf plots before they happen?
Well, first of all, there are literally thousands of federal facilities, just like the one that was attacked in Dallas today, that are either actively processing migrants or involved in the process. And so it's almost impossible, to be quite honest with you, to secure all these facilities from this type of assailant, just like it was nearly impossible to protect Charlie Kirk from someone that was hundreds of feet away with a long gun. That said, what investigators are looking at right now is any what we call leakage, online cues that this individual may share with other individuals or in person that would have indicated that they were looking to target ICE agents. That will give us a better idea of their motive and maybe who else knew about it and how we can prevent these from happening in the future. The last thing I'll say is, and I never miss an opportunity to mention this administration has, I think, rightfully called this a targeted act of violence. Unfortunately, however, several months ago, they decreased the funding for the office in DHS that's specifically geared towards stopping these types of attacks. The Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Grant was slashed more than half. So I think that the administration needs to take another look at the violence that we have, the political violence, and how they can take a role in helping communities be safer with grant funding like that.
Yeah, so for the public watching all of this unfold, what should they take away about the risks of these targeted attacks? And what do you think needs to happen, Danelle, to stop this kind of violence?
I think Ted Cruz said it the best, and folks would look at his full statement. I also think that other people who are influencers and politicians have started speaking out about the political rhetoric that we've seen over the last year. And so I think that needs to tamp down. But, to be quite honest with you, these aren't regular people that are committing these acts. These are individuals that are in the fringe of our society. They're getting radicalized on the dark and deep web. And what regular people should do is call these individuals out, let them know that the violence that we've seen is not normal. The political rhetoric is not normal. We should tamp that down and report these individuals when they articulate that they're going to commit some type of act of violence.
Okay, Danelle Harvin, always good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there is a lot going on across the country, from the shooting to a looming government shutdown. For more, let's bring in our political panel tonight. Senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright and Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Gentlemen, welcome. So Kelly, what are we hearing from the White House tonight regarding today's shooting?
Well, several people from the administration are speaking out about it. Vice President J.D. Vance, speaking earlier today, said you don't have to agree with his or President Trump's policy on immigration, but you should not resort to violence. And he's praying for the victims. Also, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is praying for the victims as well as ICE. She issued a strong statement today stating this vile attack was motivated by hatred for ICE. And for months, she wanted to say, we've been warning politicians and the media to tone down their rhetoric about ICE law enforcement before someone was killed. And this shooting, she stated, must serve as a wake-up call to the far left that their rhetoric about ICE has consequences, comparing ICE day in and day out activities to the Nazi Gestapo, the secret police, and even slave patrols has consequences, she adds. The men and women of ICE and our fathers and mothers and sons and daughters, and they, like everyone else, while they get up every morning to protect America and make our community safer, they do want to return home to their families. But just last month, Jenna, that same facility that the shooting took place today, that same facility a month ago received a bomb threat. So the rhetoric has to be toned down.
Yeah, Nathan, and there is a whole conversation about toning down the rhetoric. We heard from Senator Ted Cruz. Congressman Wesley Hunt of Texas posted this on X today. Demonizing our law enforcement has consequences. Dangerous rhetoric against those who protect our community fuels violence like this. Danelle, we just heard him mention that, most people, even if they have strong opinions, are not going to go shoot up, an ICE facility but it does encourage people out there who maybe aren't well. Maybe just your thoughts on that and how we put a stop to ending this kind of violence that seems to be just becoming more common.
I think everyone has a role in both the current situation and the solution. I mean, for those people who use the Bible as a guide, I think James 1:19 is probably a good place to start, about being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. If you if Broadway musicals are your thing, then Hamilton, talk less, smile more is probably a good start. But I think everyone needs to be careful with words, and that can mean a lot of different things. In this instance where we are right now, I think avoiding the terms like they and them to attribute actions and motives to a large group of people isn't helpful. And I would even dare say just be careful and slow when labeling things, labeling what might be political differences as spiritual differences, because that what you think, where you land on that will start to guide your attitudes and actions. And even if you do get to the point where that person is my enemy, for followers of Jesus, we're called to love our enemies, not hate them, shoot them, or trash them online.
Absolutely. In so many ways, it does feel like it's more of a spiritual battle than anything else. It's, we don't battle against flesh and blood, but yeah, it's a spiritual battle. Okay, switching gears, the president and Democrats, they are in a stalemate right now over government funding, with the White House canceling an upcoming meeting with Democratic leadership. Kelly, are we headed for a government shutdown, and what was the political strategy here?
Jenna, it seems so. The president claims Democrat leaders Senator Chuck Schumer and Congressman Hakeem Jeffries are making, quote, unserious and ridiculous demands in exchange for their votes to prevent a government shutdown, which is why he canceled the meeting, which was to have taken place with him and those two leaders tomorrow. And today, Senate Majority Leader John Thune supported the president, telling another network today that he felt it wouldn't be a credible meeting if it were to occur, because the Dems are being unreasonable, he claims, keeping government open for 7 more weeks and adding $1 trillion in new spending is what the Democrats are calling for. Meantime, the Democrats are stating that the president is running away from obligations to sit down and talk and find a solution. Hopefully cooler heads can prevail and they will avert a government shutdown, but at the moment it seems to be something that could happen.
Yeah, Nathan, you follow Congress closely. How are you reading this? What do you think we're headed for?
Well, unfortunately, no one is afraid of a shutdown, and right now both parties believe that they will gain politically from a shutdown, and so that just leads us closer and closer to one and potentially into one. Ultimately, I think it depends on the outcomes of which party will be blamed more. The party in power is probably at a little bit more risk, but I don't think it's going to be that clean. And what's interesting in this case is that I think President Trump's deal-making instincts sort of kicked in initially to have that meeting with Democratic leadership, and the Republicans on the Hill, as Kelly said, no, it's not even worth the time. So unfortunately, I would expect us to head into at least a short-term shutdown, and then they're going to have to figure it out from there.
Okay. All right, yeah. Kelly and Nathan, we will leave it there this evening. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great night. Okay, coming up, new warnings about an economic slowdown, how you can protect your money next. Welcome back. A new global report is raising some red flags about the American economy. While growth has been stronger than expected this year, the Organization for Economic Cooperation says things could slow down by 2026. The group blames rising tariffs as a big reason why, saying those extra taxes on imports are starting to hit businesses and could drive prices even higher. The report warns that if inflation rises and debt keeps climbing, the U.S. could face more serious challenges ahead. Mark Hamrick joins us now. He is the Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst for Bankrate.com. Mark, welcome. So the report says the economy has held up better than expected this year, but momentum seems to be slowing. Your reaction, Mark, and what do you think is driving this shift?
Good to be with you, Jenna. I think we do need to differentiate between the U.S. economy and the global economy, the U.S. being the supertanker of economies around the world. Harder to steer, harder to stop, harder to get going if it slows. And, you and I have been talking about tariffs since April when we had that post-April Fool's Day announcement. And, we've broadly been talking about the risks associated with tariffs, which, easily defined is slower economic growth and higher inflation. And, we have the OECD, which is a credible global body identifying those risks with an updated sense of urgency, if you want to put it that way. But it's not really news. And I do think we have to acknowledge that we've been really talking about the potential for an economic slowdown, whether it was because of elevated interest rates before this year or tariffs in the second quarter of this year, which largely has not substantially materialized. And there are all kinds of forecasts out there about the way that growth might look both for the US and the world next year. And what I would say is the Federal Reserve has basically recently very slightly upgraded the outlook for growth, very slightly, but still either at the long-term trend or slightly below it, and that is far from a recession. And I would say there are implications for historically high tariffs, the most since the Great Depression, for all the other countries of the world, many of which don't have the resources or the resilience or the strength that the United States possesses.
So the report also suggests the Fed may cut interest rates again soon as the economy softens. Do you think that's the right move, Mark? And how much room does the Fed really have to act right now?
It's too early to say, Jenna, and that's why Federal Reserve officials aren't going to say that they're ready to cut rates further. They just did the most modest of rate cuts, 0.25%, and collectively they forecast the possibility of two more rate cuts this year and some more going forward. But I would urge members of the audience, the people kindly watching today, not to be so enamored of whether there are rate cuts coming or not, because there's a high degree of uncertainty with that. If there is a substantial flaring up of inflation, that's going to put more pressure on the Fed not to cut rates as aggressively. On the other side of that is if we see further weakening in the job market, as we've already seen, that creates more urgency. So there is a risk of a slowdown, as there always is, but I would also say recently the risks of recession have been seen as somewhat receding or going down, but probably still somewhat historically elevated.
Yeah, just about 30 seconds left, Mark, but what's your best advice for people at home who are trying to protect their money?
Continue to stick with your long-term game plan, and that should include saving for emergencies. You need to save for retirement. A majority of Americans say they're behind where they need to be with their retirement savings. That's a new survey we published at bankrate.com today. Pay down high-cost debt. Credit cards at the top of the list. The average for new credit card offers for the best qualified users, people with superior credit scores, still 20% and above. So those are three things you can do every day and right away.
Okay, Mark Hamrick with Bankrate. Mark, thank you. And up next, it's the world's biggest killer, heart disease. What doctors say you can do to now stay healthy, and the treatment offering hope to millions. Welcome back. It is the world's #1 killer. Tens of millions of people die from cardiovascular disease each year. And a new report says it's rising. According to new data from the Global Burden of Disease Study, 1 in 3 people died from heart disease globally in 2023. That's more than 19 million people. Researchers attributed 80% of all heart disease-related deaths and disability to modifiable factors like obesity, elevated glucose levels, and high blood pressure. Well, many people take statins to lower cholesterol and prevent heart disease, but not everyone can tolerate them. One treatment option is showing promise for people looking for alternatives. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson has more on what it is and how it works.
More than 200 million people worldwide take a statin drug because of its ability to significantly lower LDL, or so-called bad cholesterol. But up to 29% of statin users complain of side effects. Muscle symptoms like pain, weakness, and cramps are by far the most common, but others include stomach problems and fatigue. Patients who experience side effects often stop using statins, but now there are pharmaceutical alternatives for people who would like to take a drug to help lower bad cholesterol but don't want to take a statin. Study shows bempedoic acid is effective and without the drawbacks some experience with statins. The Cleveland Clinic led a study involving 14,000 statin-intolerant patients, and the group that took bempedoic acid experienced significant benefits compared to the group that took a fake pill.
About a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events and a 39% reduction in death from heart-related causes. Those are really big treatment effects. There were no more muscle-related difficulties with bempedoic acid than there were with the placebo treatment that half of the patients received.
Bempedoic acid did, however, raise a few red flags.
There were some side effects, including increased cost, but also some patients were more likely to develop gout and gallstones. But this is why it's important to talk to doctors about risk and benefits, not only with this drug, but with any medication.
In addition to bempedoic acid, doctors can prescribe a number of other non-statin cholesterol-lowering drugs.
Yeah, so one would be ezetimibe, which is a pill that you take and decreases cholesterol absorption in the gut. There are other injectable medicines that you can take that lower cholesterol by inhibiting something in the liver called PCSK9. And there's 3 different medications that really address that.
The American Heart Association announced the top 8 ways to achieve good cardiovascular health, like eating right, exercising, getting enough sleep, and keeping blood pressure in check.
Really, probably the biggest risk factor for heart disease in this era is still smoking. So quitting smoking is far and away the single most important thing a person can do. Fortunately, I think most people know that's the right thing to do and are either working on it or have done it or have never started smoking. So after that, the next biggest factor we pay attention to is cholesterol levels. High cholesterol is one of the real drivers for heart disease.
In addition to statins and statin alternative pharmaceuticals, some doctors recommend natural products to help lower cholesterol, like oatmeal, niacin, and red yeast rice extract. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
And still ahead, rocking out for a great reason. Finally tonight, an uplifting story spreading joy through their music. It's called the Songs for Kids Band. The musical group is made up of kids and teens living with disabilities or illnesses. For 20 years now, the nonprofit behind the band has offered music mentorships, giving the kids an opportunity to showcase their talents on stage.
How do you reach someone who isn't like you? Well, music is a great way to do that. All the band members are like, thank you. Like, we needed this.
Oh, well, over the summer, the Songs for Kids Band hit the road for the first time ever in a nationwide tour, jamming out and spreading joy all across the country. That's wonderful to see and a great mission. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. That's going to do it for Faith Nation. Have a great evening.